What's an argument that you lost because the other person was too dumb to understand your logic? Guy once told me he was speeding on his motorcycle one night in the freezing cold and was almost caught by a police helicopter with an infrared camera. He said he ditched the copter by taking his coat off and cooling his body down to ambient temperature so the infrared camera couldn't see him. I ignored the fact that he'd be dead if his body temp dropped that much and simply asked why they couldn't pick up the heat from the engine. He said infrared cameras only pick up heat from organic sources. At this point I decided against even trying to argue against any of the ridiculous points he was trying to make and just noped right out of the conversation. Smart thing to do. It doesn't seem likely he'd ever listen to any of your arguments. You should always drive as fast as possible to get the best MPG. Driving twice as fast cuts your travel time in half and cuts your gas usage in half as well. Row. Why it's not cheaper to buy a new $1,200 phone on a 24-month payment plan than to fix a phone that's paid off with a broken screen. $150. Oof. My family falls for the small monthly fee thing a lot and it drives me nuts. I swear Rent-A-Center has a shrine set up for how much my mom has spent there. She usually has the money to buy outright, or could easily save up, but she honestly thinks it's a better deal because it's only $25 a week. That's basically nothing. My co-worker thinks that police radar guns work by scanning cars to see how hot their engine is. Because the faster you go, the hotter it will be, right? I tried explaining how Doppler radar works, but she remains convinced that she's correct, because, and I quote, my husband has one of those radar guns and uses it when he's cooking on the grill. Your husband has an infrared thermometer, you frickin' nut. Ask her how fast a steak travels when her husband grills one. A guy I knew in high school insisted Hawaii was in the Gulf of Mexico because that's what it showed on the map. He even opened our textbook to show and then looked at me like I was an idiot. I just told him to educate everyone he could then. I did not get credit in a game of Trivial Pursuit for my guess of King Tutankhamun. The correct answer was, yep, you guessed it, King Tut. I was like 13 and we had just done an Egypt study in school. So, I was positive about being correct and pretty proud for knowing it. Kinda reminds me of when I was 6 and the teacher asked what comes after summer and I said autumn and she said nope. After summer is fall. Guy said that I could touch a black hole because they only targeted stars and planets. I wanted to die. I was trying so hard not to laugh. True, I have a pet black hole at home. Problem is, every time he's hungry he goes to music festivals. Poor artists. In HS football, the night before a game, we would get together and set goals for the game. Defense set the goal of 200 total yards of offense allowed. I corrected the to make it less than 200 yards. They disagreed adamantly and kept the greater than. I was tutoring 4 of them in math at the time. They also hit their goal, more than 200 yards given up. Was trying to ask my neighbors to shut their dogs up at night because we can't sleep, but my dogs never bark. There they are, barking in the background. SMH and walk away. I reject your reality and substitute my own. A guy argued that a baby grand piano was for little children during their earliest piano lessons, saying that's why they're called baby grands. I explained that the term baby grand simply refers to the smallest size of a grand piano, about 4 feet 5 inches long. He just insisted that baby grands were for little children, and that's why they're called baby grands. File this under arguments that can be resolved in a single Google search. One of my college teachers gave us a test on computer hardware. One question was, what is the most important part of any computer? It was multiple choice. CPU, memory, motherboard, SU. I told him that the question made no sense. All of the parts are necessary. No one is most important. Without any one, the computer would not work. He insisted that it was the CPU. Of course the question was flawed. The answer is obvious. The user. Duck's incoming chair. Girl tried to convince me that she would lose her virginity if used tampons. I literally had to teach her the anatomy of the vagina uterus and she said that if you retract the poop while taking a crap, it's self-oral sex. I just wanted to kill myself after that. I am so confused by that second one. I can't get my head around her reasoning at all, and I don't understand where oral comes into it. I'm a bartender. When I put a drink up to be run to a table in the restaurant, the servers have to put a garnish on depending on the drink. I see new guy standing there staring at the lemons. Ask him what the deal is and he responds, "These limes aren't ripe yet." Try to explain that's not how that works and guy tells me I don't have to be in a hole. Suffice to say, we've lowered our standards for servers lately. Some say he's still waiting for those limes to ripen to this day. A guy I used to work with believed that germs were a myth. He thought bad air is what made you sick. We worked in a meat department. Luckily he would wash his hands and keep stuff clean. But his logic was dirty things make bad air. I tried so hard to convince him germs were real, to the point I would print off literature of various educational levels, from kindergarten to college level, and he believed it was all a hoax. It drove me up a wall. He also believed the moon landing was fake. We got in heated arguments over it, to the point my boss put a ban on discussing the moon at all. Now this is just a hunch, but your co-worker may be a time-traveling gentleman from the Victorian era. I was trying to explain to my roommates that we can't leave our front door unlocked 24/7, especially when no one is in the apartment and when they are out and I'm sleeping, and that they should replace the keys they lost. Plus we're on a college campus where theft is pretty common and my room was broken into the previous year. We live in on a college campus, so we're safe. What good is a locked door going to do if someone comes in with a gun? If something happens, that's just life. We went around in circles for 27 minutes. Worst argument ever. College campus, so we're safe. Oh man, he should know that in some cases, there is more crime on college campuses than in the general city they live in. What is worse, is that is reported crime, because colleges like to hide this information and keep it from being reported if they can. Whenever I use words my mother never heard of and tells me to correct myself, I now have to actually get Google definitions to show her I am not speaking nonsense, cause I used to always lose those because she's a mom and older, therefore she knows more than me. Holy freaking crap. I was in chemistry and we were gathered around a table and the teacher was asking about color of the samples and I said one looked amber. The whole class, teacher included, tried to tell me amber wasn't a color. I just had to let it go. I pointed out that his car mirrors were tinted blue. I just thought it was interesting. He got really offended, and when we actually looked at them to prove my point, he said one of the most baffling things I've ever heard. The mirrors aren't tinted, reality is. I'm 14 too and this is deep. I once was innocently commenting about something on the news about the Pope. The idiot guy I was dating was like, "Hey, I don't want to hear about those stupid Christians. You can't trust any of them." I'm like, name. You're Lutheran, aren't you? Him. Yeah, exactly. That's why I try to avoid Christians and their rants. 20-minute convo as I tried to explain to him what a Christian was and that he was one. Didn't understand, believe. Turned into a breakup convo for realizing how dumb he was, hahaha. Yeah, somebody tried to convince me that Catholics weren't Christians once. Not sure what denomination he was though. When I was working waiting tables they changed scheduling systems and the times printed were in military time. My shift said I started at 10:50, so that is when I show up, 10:50 am. At the end of my shift, my manager hands me a write-up to sign for being late. I refuse because I was there at my scheduled time, 10:50 am. He then tried to tell me I was supposed to be in at 10:30. This is when I go and grab the paper schedule and point to where it says 10:50, clearly written. At this point I start to notice that all of the start times were either at the top of an hour, 1 o'clock, 1300 hours, etc., or at the hour and :50. When making the schedule, he thought that :50 in military time was a half hour and would not listen to me when I explained as clearly as I could that it was the hours that changed, not the minutes. He still put that freaking write-up in my file. Stupid butthole. They kept insisting that they were entitled to their opinion over something that was a fact. For some reason telling her that her opinion didn't sway the truth just made her double down. Situation. I mentioned that a certain YouTube personality was gay. I said it matter-of-factly, not to be mean. The guy has mentioned being gay on his channel several times. This girl got mad and girl kept denying he was into dudes. This was despite me pointing out that he openly identified as gay. She cited that it was her opinion to validate the dude's sexuality on what her stupid butt wants to believe. I'll be finishing up my history degree in a few months. I really shouldn't be arguing my subjects with people who've never had a reason to pick up a history book, but I was stuck with a buddy of mine for several hours a day for the better part of last year, and we got around to talking about pretty much everything. At one point, for one reason or another, we got to talking about the Comanche Indians. I mentioned a common misconception, and he countered with a stereotype that he learned in grade school. We went back and forth for a while, and I tried to reference books on the topic, but his response was always to restate the same stereotype and say I'm part Cherokee, so I know. Eventually, when he clearly had nothing left to say, he asked the most annoying question possible in that situation. Yeah, well, were you there? How do you even respond to that? I definitely wasn't there, but neither was anyone else alive today, and accepting that argument would pretty much void all study of history. I pretty much gave up. He's not a dumb guy, but history is clearly not his field, and there was no way anything was gonna come of the argument. This was recent. Someone who doesn't run tried to tell me that running on a treadmill doesn't count because you can just lift up your legs and that the track does all the work. I tried to explain that while it isn't 100% the same as running outside, your body wants to stay relative to the moving track, so yes, you are propelling yourself forward, and many outside runners, myself included, run on treadmills at some point for training when the weather isn't cooperating. I'm pretty sure we would be able to tell if we weren't exerting any effort on the treadmill. He said that people who run on treadmills are lazy and we are all wasting our time pretending to work out. Okay buddy. At least in this case you can just tell him to run on a treadmill for 30 minutes since it takes no effort, and see how that turns out. I got into an argument with a guy who swore red cars were faster. His rationale was because Ferraris are always painted red, which is also not true. At first I thought he was just messing with me, but no, he really believed it and nothing I could say would change his mind. I finally gave up on arguing with stupid and told him how right he was. Someone was scared of getting a driver license because of the danger involved, so they were going to get a motorcycle license because it was a safer vehicle to operate. I tried telling them it was more dangerous, but they weren't having it. When my friend said that dinosaurs never existed and it was all a conspiracy perpetrated by natural history museums to deny God and make everyone atheists, well, he worships a really small god. I think the creator of the universe would have a lot of fun with giant lizards. My coworker believed in the we only use 10% of our brains myth. I tried everything but there was no getting through to him. I'm pretty sure he's only using 10% of his brain. Whist getting a tour of our children's school garden. The teacher is rambling on about the different veggies and stuff they grow. We are walking by these giant sunflowers. Teacher: oh, these are sunflowers. For making popcorn. Me: you mean you add them to popcorn? Teacher: number. Sunflower seeds make popcorn. Me: I'm 100% sure corn kernels are used for making popcorn, hence the name popcorn. She sighed and moved on, continuing to think I'm a hulking 6 feet 5 inches Neanderthal. Now we're at the herb section and she points at the thyme and rosemary. Teacher: this is thyme and rosemary. We use these to make chocolate. Me: what? You add those to chocolate? That is to give it a funky taste. I'm surprised the kids like it. Teacher: no, we don't add it to chocolate. Chocolate is made from them. I gave up questioning her at this point and finished the tour silently contemplating how this woman can zip up her pants in the morning, let alone get a degree and teaching certificate. Tangentially related, but in K-12 on a number of occasions I got into an argument with someone who would resort to talking at me in Spanish, which I didn't speak, and then end with a triumphant expression, believing they had just won the argument because I couldn't refute their points. The response, of course, is you're wrong no matter what language you use. Still a little mad about this one. I was in a marketing class and we had a big project to present why someone should or shouldn't go with a certain marketing strategy. We had Group A argue the for side and my group argue the against side. Well, Group A went first and they gave every detail of the entire argument, including all of the pros and the cons. They gave every detail. neither making it look good or bad because they gave both sides of the argument. So when we went up and presented only the negatives, we got criticized for looking like we didn't know the full picture. But the whole point was to argue why it wouldn't work. Giving both sides an argument would be like a lawyer saying my client is innocent but also might be guilty. Flat earth Newtonian relativity. When I was still in school, I'd work with my girlfriend's dad on some weekends for some extra money, and I'd normally be the only college educated one in a field of grown blue collar men. When one of them learned that I was a physics major, he was very eager to prove that my entire education was wrong. He tried to argue that the earth doesn't rotate and therefore, still not sure how this even draws this conclusion, the earth is flat. His argument was that the duration of a flight going the same distance from east to west should be different than a flight going from west to east because one way, you are flying with the rotation and one you are flying against it. I tried explaining relativity in the simplest terms possible. He understood throwing a ball when you're in a moving car train, walking in a moving plane. Every possible example I could think of, I'd explain and he'd agree. When we got to a plane taking off being like the ball and the earth rotating being the moving car train, I just completely lost him every time. He said it can't be the same and the liberals brainwashed me if I actually believe that. Planes taking the same route in different directions will take slightly different times, but I think that's due to air currents rather than the earth's rotation. Not a last argument, but when I was 18, I had a girl try to tell me that all the bakeries on my country were actually owned by one company that was controlled by the government. I lived in Australia. When I pointed out to her that I was doing a bakery apprenticeship at the time and that my family had been in the industry for more than 3 generations and no less than 6 members of my extended family owned bakeries, she just looked me in the eyes and said, well, I'm sorry to burst your little bubble. I swear I could see the back of her skull through her eyes as the wind whistled gently between her ears. I swear I could see the back of her skull through her eyes as the wind whistled gently between her ears. Ha 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 ha. That was good, mate. Played chess with a friend who did not the rules of chess. They believed pawns could kill an opponent by going forward, and that they could also move side to side as long as they are just going one space at a time. LOL, this kind of crap drives me bananas. The free parking rule in Monopoly is an example. The fact that it's the way we always played at my house doesn't mean that those are the actual rules of the game. And I'm not a dong for insisting that we follow the actual rules of the game. A really good buddy of mine is sorely convinced dinosaurs didn't exist. He's a smart dude too. Will not come to reason though. Neighbor, terrible person, was selling a car, wanted $700 for it. My friend offered her $600. She got mad, said let's just split the difference. Give me $350. So he said, sure thing, you win. She never figured out what she did. Dang, what a steal. I will preface this by saying my wife is not dumb. Anyway, I gave up on trying to get her to not use metal stainless utensils in non-stick pans after about the 5th argument about it because she is either too ignorant or too stubborn to not do it. So all of our non-stick pans have a bunch of scratches and gouges in the non-stick coating. Yay. My ex kept using a knife to cut food in the frying pan and tried to blame me for the scratches in them. I had to point it out to him while he was doing it for him to believe me. He would also bang utensils on the side of the pan or pot hard enough to leave dents. I tried to convince a flat earther friend that the moon was indeed a sphere that reflects the sun's light. After running logical circles for about 2 hours, I finally got fed up and offered to get my telescope out and show him with his eyes that the moon is a giant rock and doesn't produce light of its own because his whole argument was you can't see it with your eyes so it's not true. He refused to look through the telescope and claimed I was attacking his religious and personal beliefs for this. I worship the ice wall, mother. That pagans don't worship Satan. Blocked him after he said, you know, if you weren't such an ugly heathen I'd frick you. He was 68. I was 15. Jesus Christ. Last time I needed to call the support I needed to verify myself. The quite unfriendly sounding lady told me to give her a pin. I told her I never set up a pin. Her answer basically was I shall tell her the pin anyway. That went on around 5 times until I just hung up. Side note 1. You need to verify yourself before that step, which I did via temporary pin in an SMS. Side note 2. She never gave an option to do that or even set up a new pin. She insisted on giving her a pin that does not exist yet. I once had my wallet stolen and I called to cancel my cards. They first asked me for the CC number. I told her it was stolen. She then told me to look on the card. I was then told if I don't know the card number she can't help me. Hung up, called back and got someone that actually helped. Might be too late to the party, but I'll still share. I lost an argument with my sister over her new association with Amway. She brought in Nutri vitamin pills and claimed they were better than other brands. To prove this, she dropped her pill and another brand's pill into water. Because the Amway pill dissolved in water, it'll get dispersed through our body, and the other brands didn't dissolve, it'll go straight through your digestive system. When I brought up stomach acid, she doubled down on the fact that human bodies are 60% water. Sometimes I wonder just how many people actually went to a biology lesson. Allah is just another word for God. No, it's not. Allah is Satan worship. What? God be praised. Stop talking about Satan. I'm leaving. Runaway coward. This guy I used to work with also believed that vaccines are bad and the earth is flat. He got fired for being a quick to anger idiot, not for his beliefs. Funny thing is, I'm Muslim and I know that the Arabic translated Bible says Allah. It's kinda entertaining seeing religious people, especially Christians, call Allah Satan. My poor brother has a story about this. I should start by saying that both our parents are engineers and were very good about giving truthful, thought out and scientific answers to our childhood questions. Unfortunately, in grade school, the teachers weren't the same. One day he got in a slight argument with another student about moon boots. The other child claimed something along the lines of, the moon has no gravity, therefore astronauts need moon boots to stick to the moon or else they'd fly off. My brother corrected him by saying that there is gravity on the moon. The other child wasn't having it though and his smugness got to my brother, so he decided to have the teacher wait in. He was positive the teacher would side with him and wipe that smirk off the dumb kid's face. He asks the teacher, is there gravity on the moon? She replies, no, the moon is out in space where there is no gravity, and dismissed him. My brother now has his master's in mechanical engineering and a healthy skepticism of authority figures' opinions. He is also still upset about what happened that day. I asked my supervisor in a manufacturing plant why the new hires were not using a bin to catch parts off the line, but were instead pulling them off the line and packing them directly. He had no clue what I was talking about, but he looked into it and later decided that it was more cost efficient to stand there and hold the part until it comes off the line and pack it instead of letting them collect and packing them as needed. The difference is that if you use the bin, you have time to measure a part, perform the required testing and attend to your line, so that it's less likely to catch fire, without needing a second person to step in to relieve you. The bin effectively replaces your second person. It makes the job a lot easier, and there is no additional cost to anyone in any way. The parts are finished and packaged in the same amount of time, but nobody has to hold the part and wait for it to come off the line. Unfortunately, my supervisor thinks that if my hands are not busy holding the part, the company is losing money, because lean manufacturing, the customer isn't paying for parts to fall into a bin after all. He makes almost double my salary. That line caught fire today. My middle school bully and I got into it whether it was Hermione or Hermione. This was shortly before the Harry Potter movies had come out, and I was telling her that I'd seen an interview with JKR in which she'd pronounced it correctly, but my bully insisted on the incorrect one because that's how me and my mom and my sister all say it, as if strength and numbers had any bearing on the situation. My bully was a girl, y'all. It says her right in the post. We were both middle school girls. She just also liked to be a piece of crap to me for no goddamn reason, lol. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.